Lawyers representing 37 women who say they were raped or sexually assaulted by Mohamed Al-Fayed say he was a monster and sexual predator whose behaviour was enabled by Harrods, the luxury store he owned until 2010. Harrods' current owners say they're appalled by the allegations and have a settlement process in place for alleged victims. Tonight, a former manager of Fulham FC's women's team has told us that female players weren't allowed to be left alone with the billionaire when he owned the club because it was well known that he liked young blonde girls. It all comes after the BBC aired this documentary yesterday, which heard testimony from more than 20 survivors. Since then, more people have approached the BBC and the Metropolitan Police with further allegations. In a moment, we'll speak to our UK correspondent Daniel Sanford and to Laura Scott, who's at Fulham's ground. First, here's Helena Wilkinson with today's developments. And to warn you, this report contains descriptions of sexual violence.
Mohamed Al-Fayed, the billionaire who was a powerful figure in British society, the former boss of Harrods and one-time owner of Fulham Football Club. He was also the father of Dodi Al-Fayed, who died in a car crash with Princess Diana. Today, at an extraordinary news conference, more shocking and disturbing details about Al-Fayed's behaviour towards female staff at Harrods were revealed.
Mohamed Al-Fayed, my boss, the person I work for, pushed himself onto me. I fell to the floor with him still on top of me, but I managed to kick free. He just laughed at me. He then composed himself and he told me in no uncertain terms that I was never to breathe a word of this to anyone. I was subjected to an unnecessary and intrusive medical examination. I was never given those results. I was subjected to AIDS and STD testing without consent, and now believe in hindsight, I was checked for my purity.
Lawyers representing Al-Fayed's accusers said this was one of the worst cases of sexual exploitation they had ever seen.
We will say it plainly. Mohamed Al-Fayed was a monster. Our aim, and our single aim, is to seek justice for the survivors.
Alongside American lawyer Gloria Allred, who's represented dozens of victims of high-profile, powerful men.
Mohamed Al-Fayed died last year at 94 years old. He died without ever taking responsibility for what he did to many of his victims. These victims have suffered for years, even decades.
Accusations had been made about Al-Fayed over a number of years. In 2008 and 2009, the police did get involved in a sexual assault case of a 15-year-old girl. But the Crown Prosecution Service decided there wasn't enough evidence to prosecute. And then 3 more times between 2018 and 2023, the police consulted prosecutors for advice on other allegations. But Mohamed Al-Fayed died before the investigation was complete. Harrods, which has been under new ownership for more than a decade, said today that more accusers have come forward since the BBC documentary. They say they are utterly appalled at the allegations and have expressed sympathy for the victims. They've also said they're providing a compensation scheme for ex-employees who say they were attacked by Al-Fayed. Highlighted here is John McNamara, Al-Fayed's then head of security. The former senior Met police officer was today named as one of those who threatened some of the victims. Speaking to the BBC for the first time, a woman we're calling Kate said that Al-Fayed assaulted her a number of times. She was 22 when she started working at Harrods.
He's an absolute monster. He knew exactly what he was doing, as did many other people throughout the organisation. I received threatening phone calls after I'd left Harrods, threats not to speak.
The police have urged any victims of sexual assault to contact them. For Al-Fayed's accusers, there's regret that he's no longer alive to face justice. Helena Wilkinson, BBC News.
Well, Laura Scott is at Fulham FC tonight, which Mohamed Al-Fayed owned from 1997 to 2013. Laura, you've been talking to a former manager of the women's team. Tell us more about what he said.
Yes, Jane. Tonight I've been speaking to a former manager of Fulham Football Club's women's team who told me that extra precautions were put in place to protect female players from Mohamed Al-Fayed. Gota Halganez, who managed the team from 2001 to 2003, said that members of staff became aware that the late billionaire liked young blonde girls, and as a result, the players weren't allowed to be left alone with the late billionaire owner who owned the club for 16 years from 1997 to 2013. Earlier, we had a statement from Fulham saying that they were deeply concerned by the disturbing reports that have come to light about Al-Fayed, and they said that they were trying to establish whether anyone at this club had been affected, encouraging anyone with information to come forward, not just to the club, but to the police as well. And whilst lawyers representing women who've accused Al-Fayed of sexual abuse say they aren't currently representing anyone who previously worked here, they said their investigations are ongoing and that wherever Al-Fayed went, there would be victims. Tomorrow, Fulham play here at Craven Cottage, and we know that many fans are calling for the chance in honour of Al-Fayed to be brought to an end.
Laura, thank you. Let's talk to Daniel Sanford as well. Daniel, we know that previous police investigations have got nowhere. What are the options now?
Yeah, Mohammed Al-Fayed was investigated 4 times by the Metropolitan Police on allegations of sexual assault or rape. The last investigation only ended because he died, but I think the most significant investigation was that allegation by the 15-year-old girl. Police struggled to corroborate her story, which is perhaps not surprising when you consider that the BBC documentary was told by one woman who says that she was herself raped, that when she was interviewed about the 15-year-old's allegations, a Harrods lawyer was present. Either way, the Metropolitan Police, when they put the file to the Crown Prosecution Service, the Crown Prosecution Service said there wasn't enough evidence to bring charges. The head of the CPS at that time was Sir Keir Starmer. Downing Street says that the file didn't cross his desk. And that brings us to today and whether there's any way of getting some kind of criminal justice for these women. Obviously, Mohammed Al-Fayed can't be put in the dock, he's dead. But actually, because so many women have come forward now, I think it would in theory be possible for detectives to go through their accounts and look for patterns, look and see if there was anybody that seemed to be facilitating a lot of these assaults and rapes. And that actually does open up the possibility of somebody having a conspiracy charge or a trafficking charge brought against them. But I have to say that at this stage, this is just a sort of theoretical possibility.
All right, Daniel, thank you.